What's up, guys, and welcome back to Eventual Acres. So last week I talked about my fall garden plans, but today I'm actually going to start my fall garden. We're expecting rain in about an hour or so I don't really think today's the day to plant any of the seeds. Oh, and I hear thunder. All right, so maybe even less than an hour. I think we're just a little bit limited on time. So as I was saying, I don't think I'm going to plant any seeds today because once the rain does finally decide to start, I don't want any of my seeds getting washed up. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and just fill up the raised beds today. And then this weekend it's looking a little bit nicer, so I think then I will go ahead and plant seeds. So what I plan on filling my raised beds with is I've got 3 totes filled with soil for my buddy's, I want to say farm because it's not really a farm, but he has alpacas and he just throws all of the straw and manure and everything out in the back. So he's got pretty rich soil back there. So I've got 3 totes filled with that dirt. I've also got some peat moss, which I plan on incorporating into the mix as well, just to make sure the soil is nice and loose. And then I've got 3 bags of store-bought compost. It's actually from someplace local. They use like seashells and a bunch of other stuff to make sure it's nice and fresh and it has all of the nutrients and everything that you need. With the seashells, I guess, there's supposed to be calcium in there, which is great because if you've been watching my videos, then you know that my tomatoes have had a calcium deficiency. So hopefully this fall garden won't really have that same issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting everything filled up. Okay, so I just finished filling the raised beds just in the nick of time. It is starting to rain now. So I'm gonna fill up these raised beds probably with a little bit more dirt. I used everything that I had. I used all the soil in the totes and I used all the compost in the bags. So I'm probably gonna pick some of that up too over this weekend just to top everything off. But for the most part, I'm pretty pleased with how full everything is. But it's raining, I'm gonna head inside and I will see you guys in a little bit when I go and start putting the seeds into these raised beds. All right, guys, so now it is the weekend and it is clearly not raining. It's actually pretty sunny out today. However, I'm in the shade. But seeing that the weather is permitting today, I'm gonna go ahead and get these seeds planted. But before we do that, I actually went to the store and I bought 3 more bags of compost. I kind of cheaped out on it. I got the cheap all-purpose stuff, but I think that'll be fine. I'm just gonna mix it into the raised beds and then I'm gonna plant the seeds. So let's get into it. All right, I'd say that the raised beds now look pretty filled up if you ask me. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some seeds into these beds. All right, so for this raised bed specifically, I'm planting 3 different vegetables. I'm gonna be planting sugar snap peas, black seeded Simpson lettuce, and some Bloomsdale spinach. Now, as for the peas, it is kind of late in the season already to be planting peas. I should have planted them maybe a month or 2 ago, but they'll still grow. They just have a longer day to harvest. It takes about 70 days to harvest. Seeing that tomorrow is the first day of September and my frost period is October, I'm really pushing it, but we'll see if anything grows. If not, there's always next year. But spinach and lettuce you can pretty much plant any time of the year. They have a pretty quick germinating period, and for the lettuce specifically, it has a 42 day to harvest. So these will be ready in about halfway through October, which is right around when we get our first frost. And they're pretty cold hardy, so I'm not really too worried about lettuce, and same thing with the spinach. So I'm going to plant the peas in the back row because one thing specifically that I noticed about the tomato plants this year is that they kind of grew over the pepper plants, and that prevented a lot of the pepper plants from getting the sunlight that they need. So I don't expect the peas to really fall over these plants like the tomatoes did, but I'm still going to put them in the back. That way they're not covering anything else from getting that sunlight. And then in the middle row, I'll plant the lettuce, and then in the front row, I'm going to plant the spinach. Now for peas, it says plant 2 inches apart in rows about 2.5 feet. I'm only doing 1 row, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put them 2 inches apart. And then in the next row, I'm gonna do lettuce. For lettuce, it says about 6 inches apart, so that's how I'm gonna do it. And then the spinach is about the same thing. So I'm just gonna do 3 rows, 1 of peas, 1 of lettuce, and 1 of spinach. So for the peas, again, I just went about 2 inches, give or take, apart. You're supposed to sow them in about 1 inch in depth. I, again, just kind of eyeballed it, so we'll see how that goes. I don't think we're really going to have too much of an issue. I think I did about 1 inch. So I'd say this is probably about a good foot away from those, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now you're supposed to plant these about 1/4 inch in depth, about 6 inches apart. So if they're a little bit further than 6 inches, again, I don't think that's going to hurt. I think if anything, it's going to be more of a benefit. Now, when I plant anything into the garden, I always put more than 1 seed in the hole because it gives it a better chance of having something germinate. If you have multiple plants that start to grow up, you can always thin it. So it's not a detriment to put more seeds in it. If anything, it's probably worse to only do one seed, just because if that seed doesn't grow, now you're losing a plant, rather than if you put multiple seeds in there, the odds of having something grow are a little bit better. So for the lettuce, they're pretty small. I think I'm probably going to do 2 to 3 seeds in each. For the peas, I only put 2. But again, I don't really know what the limit is. I really probably wouldn't do more than 3 seeds in a hole. I think 2 to 3 is the maximum I would do. But again, I don't want to do just one, because if it doesn't grow, now I'm missing out on a plant. Now these are kind of small. My fingers are kind of dirty, so we'll see. It looks like about 3. And then just like lettuce, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the spinach. All right, so I hope I watered that enough. Again, the whole point is you want the soil to be wet. That way the seeds can germinate. You also don't want to overwater it, but the point is you want the soil to be wet when you sow them. So I always just water it right after. Now, in these 2 barrels right next to me, I'm going to go ahead and put the carrots in there. I know in my fall planning video, I had talked about initially doing the garlic in here, I think. I don't even remember, actually. But I'm going to hold off on doing the garlic. I'm actually going to put that in the bed that the tomatoes are in. So once the tomatoes and the peppers die off, I'll just pull those out, add some new soil to it, and then I'll plant the garlic in there, because garlic can be planted a little bit later in the season. It's a little bit more cold hardy than everything else. So I'm going to do the carrots in here because I want to get the carrots sown this weekend, and there's plenty of space and depth for the carrots to grow in here, rather than that other bed where I just put the spinach and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, but I'm going to put the carrots in here. So for this, I'm planting Nance, Scarlet. I don't know if that's correct pronunciation, so feel free to correct me in the comments. I appreciate it. But that's what's going in here. They're supposed to be really cold hardy, and apparently they taste good. I've never had them, or at least maybe I have. I don't know. I just get whatever I get at the store. So these, for carrots, they want it to be about 2 inches apart. You want them to have room to grow and not grow into each other. But for seed planting, you can do about 1 inch apart, and then you just thin it to 2 inches once they start to sprout. So I'm just getting a little creative with this. I don't really know what the correct method to do is, especially in something like this that's a circle. So I kind of just did 1 ring, a middle ring, and then just 1 in the center. Again, if it starts to look like it's an issue, I'll just thin it so that there's more space down the road. But for the seeds right now, I don't really think it's going to be that big of a deal. So I kind of just stuck my finger into the dirt as deep as I did with everything else. And these seeds are a lot smaller. So I'm hoping they end up actually germinating and sprouting plants. I hope I didn't put them too deep. I guess we'll find out. Since I'm doing the same exact thing in the other barrel, I'm actually just going to try and go a little bit lighter and not as deep, and hopefully give it a better chance. Again, we'll see. So for the last one, I did a ring. I think I might just try and do lines for this. Again, just to differentiate and see the difference. So I'm not even going to bother like putting holes. I think I'm just going to, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. Just going to make a line right in the soil. There we go. And then I'll just scoop the soil over. All right, I did something. I don't know if it'll work. I tried to do the lines and I just spread them down that row and then just covered them with that. Kind of just poked holes in circles and covered them. So we'll see which one works best. I'm actually kind of curious. I like the idea of having 2 bins because then you can kind of really test different systems with it. So we'll see. Okay, so as I already mentioned, I'm going to end up planting the garlic in this raised bed as soon as the tomatoes and the peppers are done. I'm seeing a lot more red and orange on these, so hopefully they'll be done within the next week, week and a half. If not, I might even just pull them up early. I'm not expecting that big of a harvest of tomatoes, but again, as soon as these are done, pulling those out, garlic's going in. And I think I might try and do garlic in these little buckets as well. Might only do 1 clove in each bucket. That way, again, I don't overcrowd anything. But we've got the spinach, the lettuce, the peas, and the carrots all planted today, which I'm super excited about, and it feels like a huge weight off my shoulders because I'm a procrastinator, and now I don't have to procrastinate about that anymore. So that's a bonus. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, as always, I appreciate you guys watching my video. Feel free to take the time to subscribe and like, and I will see you guys in the next video.